Hello, welcome to day 40. We're going to do 41 and 42 in this video. I didn't make a video yesterday, but I actually had a second 0 day in Pagosa Springs, which was unplanned. So we'll talk about that a little bit, and we can talk about today's hiking out of town. Let's see. So day 41 was Tuesday, the 7th of June. And the reason I was in Pagosa Springs for a second 0 day is because on Monday, the day, so I got into Pagosa Springs at like 6 p.m. Actually, it's like 7 p.m. on Sunday. And I went to go get something to eat with another hiker, and then came back to the room, took a shower, cleaned some of my gear, and went to bed. And I got up in the morning, and the big toe on my left foot wasn't really swollen, but there's a little bit of pain in there. And I think I mentioned in video 39 that, which was on Sunday when I got into town, I had a fall. I rolled my ankle and had a fall on Sunday when I was hiking 21 miles to get into town. What I also did, which I didn't think was going to be a big deal, but it turned out to be a big deal. When I was hiking, I tripped, my right foot tripped, and my left foot swung around to catch me, kind of the counterbalance. And when it swung around, I kicked a rock, and it was a large rock. The rock didn't move very far, which means that a lot of the energy went into my foot. And I didn't think anything. I mean, it hurt. I sat there for 5 minutes, kind of massaging my foot or my toe specifically, because I hit like directly on the toe. And I thought to myself, okay, let's get some blood flowing through here, and I'll be all right. And I hiked on down, and there was pain for maybe the first like 20 minutes after I kicked the rock, but it kind of subsided, just because the blood was flowing through. And then I forgot it. And Monday, when I woke up and I had the pain in my foot, I started wondering, is this going to become a thing? I thought like my right ankle was going to blow up because I rolled it. I thought I might have some bruising, which I did from the fall. But neither one, like the ankle was functional, even though it had a little bit of swelling. The bruising wasn't enough to, put me on my backside. I was able to walk around okay. But I walked to breakfast on Monday, which was like a mile from where I was staying, and I ate breakfast, and then I got outside to walk back to the hotel and also pick up some stuff from a convenience store. And I really started noticing that my left foot was full of pain, and some swelling was starting. So I went to the convenience store, got back to the hotel, and propped up my foot, and I don't know, probably an hour or two, it was entirely red and swelled up, and you could tell my toe wasn't happy. It was throbbing and whatnot. So when I was at the convenience store, I picked up some ibuprofen. I had some in my first aid kit, but I picked up some more just to be safe, and I'm glad I did, because the rest of Monday was spent basically propping up my left foot and taking ibuprofen every 4 to 6 hours, whatever it was, and keeping myself hydrated. I went to go get some dinner, and that's all the walking I did for the rest of the day. And I woke up yesterday on Tuesday, and it was really obvious, I was not going to be able to hike on the trail. I could barely put any pressure on my big toe. So I hobbled down to a breakfast place, stopped by the convenience store to pick up a couple of items to keep myself hydrated, because drinking water all the time is not the bestest. It gets old. And I spent yesterday basically just having my foot propped up all day. So it wasn't the most productive Monday and Tuesday, but it was necessary. And so that was day 40 and 41 was essentially just propping up my foot. And I was totally expecting to hike out on Tuesday. I thought that my big toe was just going to be angry for a few hours, and then, overnight it would be okay, but it wasn't. So it was red and swelled and painful yesterday. And by the end of the day, I would say around 4 to 5 o'clock, I was noticing that the swelling was going down, and I could put some pressure on the toe and the foot. So I walked to get some dinner, and it wasn't a very long walk, but I noticed like, hey, I can put pressure on it. So I wondered like, hey, when you wake up on Wednesday, are you going to be able to hike out because your toe's feeling all right? So we woke up this morning on Wednesday, and there was still some pain in my toe, but it was functional enough where I felt, let's go do 10 miles on the trail and then stop, and we can see how the toe does. Like if it blows up overnight or whatever it is, then you're only 10 miles outside of town. You're not, 18 to 24 out of town. And so I'm next to a lake. I stopped early today. I stopped at 4 or 4:15, and I'm next to a lake, so I have a water source, and there's a nice big flat area here. And I did about 10 miles to the campsite, so I took my time. I definitely wanted to use my foot as much as possible, so I tried to be as functional as possible, where, I was trying to walk as normal as I could. And even when the ground was uneven, like if I had to step through a snowfield or over a rock or tree fall, I still tried to use my foot as functionally as possible to prevent other injuries, and also to see if I could loosen up the big toe. So right now, if I flex my toe up and down, there's still a little bit of pain, but it's still mobile, which is great. I'm hoping it's not going to flare back up tonight, meaning, again, be throbbing and have inflammation and be red and angry. So I'm hoping that because I spent quite a number of hours walking today, that, everything's going to be able to kind of flow through the toe, and it'll kind of repair some damage. And hopefully it's just the kicking the rock put a shock into the joint, because it's the very first knuckle or joint on the toe that was painful and swelled up and was angry yesterday and Monday, as well as right now. Like when I flex my toe, I can feel it's the first that first knuckle. So or joint. I think essentially I just jammed my toe really fiercely, and I continued walking on it on Sunday, and that's when, like, once it got a rest, that's when it realized, like, hey, we're not happy. So 10 miles in, I plan to have a short day. I think the next few days will be like 19 or 20 mile days on average, and then I'll get into it's called Molasse Campground. After Molasse Campground, which is by Molasse Lakes, so it's right outside Silverton, Colorado. And then after that stop, I'll hike for a few more days, and then I'll stop in at Creed. And then, man, it seems so early. But after Creed, I take the turn for San Luis Pass and San Luis Peak, and I'm out of the San Juans. Like we joined the Colorado Trail, and so after the Molasse Lake campground turnoff, where I have to go get my resupply, that's the Colorado Trail. That's where it joins the CDT. And both trails are on the same trail, I think, for the next 100 miles after that. Excuse me, 100 miles after that. And then, again, we hit San Luis Peak and pass, and then we exit the San Juans right by that trailhead, and then we start walking across a large prairie. I know this from my Colorado Trail trip, and so we hike. The Colorado Trail trip, I was averaging 14 miles a day because Bo was hiking with me, and I had his food, so my pack was heavier, plus my gear was heavier back then. And so 14 miles, if I remember correctly, going across the plain, it took me, I think it was 4 days, if I remember. But the fact that we just went through the San Juans and I've already gone through New Mexico, as long as my toe feels better, then I could probably get across it in just a couple of days, and then start heading up to Monarch Pass in the Sawash mountain range, which again just seems really bonkers. Today's the 8th. So I calculated this when I was hiking earlier. So if I think it's going to be 9 days, like 4.5 to Molasse Campground and 4.5 to Creed. And then I think to Monarch, it's like, I think I planned for like 6 days because I was expecting, snow and whatnot. So it could be a little bit quicker. So let's say 5 days. I mean, you're looking at 14 days, basically, like 2 weeks. So it's just, that would be the 22nd. That would be Wednesday, the 22nd. I mean, the fact that it'd be mid-June and I'd be getting into the Sawash Range, in the I-70 corridor, north there, just, sorry, I keep going down with this. It seems just bonkers. So we'll see how the snow is up north and see if we get slowed down at all. But, this trip is flying by. It's flying by. I mean, today, even hiking 10 miles, you're like, well, it's only 10 miles, because, we averaged 20 something in New Mexico and, 17 something in Colorado so far, I believe. And so it's a low mileage day, but if I hit 1920s the next 3 days, then, 10 miles added on to that means I'm almost at Molas Lake Campground. So today's shout out is going to, it's going to go to the folks, and most of the time it's local folks, not a lot of tourists and passerbys or pass-throughs, pickup hikers, but there are a couple of places where we have to hitchhike, or if you have like a person in town that or if there's a trail angel that you've heard of, they can give a call. Like, we need a ride into town. So like we hiked into Wolf Creek Pass, and the CDT keeps going over the pass, but Pagosa Springs is 22 miles west of the trail after once you get to Wolf Creek Pass. And I think it's South Fork is like 20 miles to the east, once you get to Wolf Creek Pass. So one of those you're going to resupply. I chose Pagosa Springs just because it has more restaurants and stores and whatnot, but it's more expensive because it's a touristy area with the hot springs. But I still need a hitch, and there was a gentleman who he lives in Loveland, and he's coming to Pagosa Springs, or he was on Sunday, to visit his sister for a few days, and he was passing by and saw my thumb out and picked me up. And we have a lovely conversation about through hiking and that kind of stuff. And then this morning, there was a gentleman who works with, it's not his primary job. There's a program at the local school because their mascot is the pika, which is a little animal, lives in the mountains, in the taluses, like the talus fields. And that school's mascot is the pika. So they came up with a program where the students can come out and do a monitoring of the habitat of the pika. So it's kind of connecting their mascot to real life animal. And so he was headed up to the pass to meet his students and the teachers, and he gave me a ride. So it's the shout out is to those folks who understand what the CDT is, have educated themselves on the trail, understand that the hikers are not here to harm anybody. And you hear stories where like people would say, oh, I don't pick up the hikers because you never know if they're going to hurt you. And my thought of that is, have there been a few instances where hikers have hurt people? Yes. I think I haven't heard of any on the CDT. I could be extremely incorrect on that. I've heard a couple on the AT. I don't know about the PCT. But the reasoning is just interesting, because you give a CDT hiker a ride and they're going to harm you during the ride, but once they get to town, they're just peaceful people that are walking around giving your town money for food and lodging and whatnot. And for the most part, they're not causing issues in town. So it's the people who realize like, hey, these folks just need a ride to the trail or to town, and they're willing to give us a ride. Like, huge shout out to those folks, because trying to road walk 22 miles from Wolf Creek Pass to either South Fork or Pagosa Springs would not be enjoyable, especially with that elevation difference. So we appreciate those folks that help out. I have resting, I call it resting, we'll keep the language kind here. we'll call it resting murderer face, like I'm about to hurt you. So I have to, in order to get a hitch, I have to work to make sure I'm smiling and make sure my hair looks nice, and you know, I don't look like I'm about to jump in the car and harm you. So extra special shout out to the people who pick me up, because there's the potential that they look at my resting face and they're like, oh boy, this guy's not gonna be kind. So I appreciate it. I think that's it. Everyone have a nice evening. Hopefully my toe settles down, doesn't blow up, and I can continue hiking, and we'll talk to you folks tomorrow. Bye.